Hey y'all. So I'm finally getting a chance to do this mental health Q&A. Hopefully my son is quietly entertained for a little bit, but we will see. I did get asked how did it affect my relationship, and I talked to Brandon, and we're going to do a video together, and he's going to kind of explain what it's like to live with somebody, be with somebody, love somebody with a mental illness, and his perspective on how to help those that you love that are struggling. So I'm just going to get right into the other ones. First one I got asked that I need to address was, what is a borderline personality disorder? I'm going to refer to it as BPD, so I don't have to, say that entire diagnosis the whole time. But BPD is defined by the Mayo Clinic as a mental health disorder that impacts the way you think and feel about yourself and others, causing problems functioning in everyday life, difficulty managing emotions and behavior, and patterns of unstable relationships and self-image issues. So with BPD, there's 9 criteria you have to meet in order to, get your diagnosis. I meet 8 out of 9 of those, so that's great. But I'll go over the 9 now. The first one is intense fear of abandonment. 2 is patterns of unstable relationships. 3 is rapid changes in self-identity and self-image. That's been a big one for me. 4 is periods of stress-related paranoia and loss of contact with reality. 5 is impulsive or risky behavior, such as gambling, spending, sex, drugs, stuff like that. 6 is suicidal thoughts, behavior, or self-harm. 7 is wide mood swings lasting hours or days. 8 are ongoing feelings of emptiness. And 9 is inappropriate and intense anger. The only one of those that I personally do not struggle with is suicidal behavior. And I, thank God for that, but that's not something that I deal with. I can't imagine. So yeah, that's like the clinical terms as far as BPD goes. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a very encompassing diagnosis. It's a very spectrum diagnosis. It's more severe in others than not. And everybody struggles with individual things more. Like I said, mine is 8 out of 9 of those. So it's been very difficult for me. But I'm thankful to know what is wrong with me and how I can, help myself and help others. So we're getting there. Somebody asked me kind of what the daily struggles of BPD were. And as you kind of heard with the criteria and the diagnosis, it's a lot to do with your relationships, and your relationships with yourself primarily, I feel like, has been my case. I dealt with a lot of self-identity issues. I had no idea who I was, what I really liked, what I really wanted to do. And I dealt with a lot of self-hatred because of that, because I felt like I was always selling myself short. I always felt like I knew I was worth more and I was, better than a lot of the situations and people that I was around. But I could never separate myself the way that I knew I needed to because of the abandonment issues that I had for so long. And a lot of people that struggle with BPD are people that deal with abandonment issues. It's one of the main traumas that contribute to BPD. Mine personally stem from my parents. They did not make the best choices when they were younger. A lot of substance abuse issues, a lot of physical abuse issues. So I ended up having to live with other relatives and friends pretty much all throughout my youth. I think from like 8th grade to graduation, I was with friends. I just clung to whoever I was pretty much living with at the time. And I did not want to upset them because I had nowhere to go. I didn't have my family to run back to. So I had to kind of be whoever they wanted me to be versus who I was. So I did not know who I was for a long time, not until I kind of, separated myself entirely and got on my own entirely. And even then it took me several years to kind of figure it out and abandon the habits of other people and take on my own habits that I like and really embrace what I like and who I am. So the next one that kind of plays into daily struggles and how did I know something was wrong. just because of the way that I handled myself and my emotions was just not healthy at all. I mean, they were so extreme. Like, it's not like I got sad or mad. Like, no, like I went from 0 to 1,000 like that. I would get so angry that it was scary. It made me feel like a bad mom. It made me feel like a bad friend. It made me feel like a bad daughter. Like, everybody around me was suffering because of my emotions when I got triggered. Like, it's embarrassing really to, talk about still to this day. But if you know me, you've already seen it, firsthand probably. So I have really bad emotional outbursts, whether that be crying and sadness or, rage almost, not even anger, like really rage, and just, it's not pretty. It's not healthy. It's been quite some time at this point since I've had a major outburst like that or a major depressive episode, but that's something I dealt with for a long time. And I just thought other people didn't care. Like, I didn't realize like my reactions and my emotions were so extreme. I thought other people were nonchalant and they didn't care, but no, other people have normal reactions and control over their emotions, and I just did not have the emotional intelligence or emotional control to do so. I mean, I would self-sabotage every romantic relationship I have ever been in. I'll get this close to people and then I dart, I run. I just can't. I can't do it. And I was the same way with friends too. It's like I would be there with them, but I wouldn't really be there because I felt like nothing was permanent. So it was very hard for me to attach. I was majorly detached emotionally. I could only halfway care about people. And that sounds awful. And it's not that I didn't love or didn't know how to love. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't allow myself to fully commit to anything because I was afraid that it would be taken away from me, because my childhood pretty much had been taken away from me. That's according to a therapist. That's kind of what it stems from. But speaking of therapy, that was another question I got quite a lot, was how do I get started with therapy? The first thing I did to get started with therapy was actually Google local therapists, and I called a couple places to get quotes, stuff like that. And they do kind of a screening process over the phone to let you know if they would be a good fit for you. Therapists specialize in different things. And then once I figured out that my insurance would actually pay for it with a referral, I went through my PCP, had a consultation with her. She referred me to a psychiatrist, and that's how I got into the therapy group I'm in now. I did have to switch therapists. I did not connect well with the first one that I had, and it's something that I highly recommend anybody do. Advocate for yourself, take up for yourself. If they're not a good fit, it's okay. Don't be afraid to look elsewhere if you feel like you're not getting what you're paying for, if you're not getting help. Next one I got was, how's it affected my relationship? Again, I'm gonna bring Brayden in on another video and we're gonna talk about that. The next one I got was about medication, and this is something I definitely want to talk about. It's a very taboo subject, and I was part of that crowd that made it that for a long time. I just did not understand. I thought about mental health medication like Xanax or something, and I was like, why the F do you need to, medicate yourself to chill? Like, that's not, what it is. But true, like, antidepressants and stuff, like SSRIs, like, they're nothing like that. They're not a Xanax. They're not anything like that, which is what I was scared of for a long time. I was always so terrified to take any type of medication. So I resisted it for a long time, and I think that I would have felt a lot better if I had started taking it prior. So to answer the question, like, do you take medication? Yes, I do. I've tried to come off of it twice in the past year, and it's not gone very well. The first time I went into like a major depressive episode. Second time I went into like a major rage episode. So I'm back on my medication. I'm going to be on my medication until I get to a better place, period. And I don't, feel bad saying that. Your brain is an organ. So if you had something wrong with your liver, your kidney, whatever, and you had to take medication for it, there would be no second thought about it. So if I take medication to help my brain, that's just where it's at right now. There are things that I'm doing with my therapist that hopefully in the long run I will be able to come off of it and be able to cope and manage myself by myself and with the help of my, family and friends. But for now, it's okay. Next one I got was about education and how I educated the people around me. So I actually did not tell the people in my life about my diagnosis for quite some time. They knew I struggled with depression and anxiety. I I knew that before I even went to therapy, and I got my diagnosis of that within probably the first couple of sessions of therapy, which was at this point, well over a year ago. And I just got my diagnosis of BPD in January because it took that long to honestly work through every criteria, talk about every criteria, what my trauma stemmed from, what my, abandonment stems from. Again, I got my diagnosis in January, and I believe it was March before I told my best friends and my fiance, because I just couldn't. I could not bring myself to say the words. I'm one of the most intelligent. I'm probably the healthiest person that I know. So for me to have something so severely wrong with me, for me to have a mental illness, was a very hard pill to swallow. And I can imagine that it would be for anybody. Again, I knew something was wrong with me for a long time. So I was actually kind of relieved to get the diagnosis, because I was like, okay, this is it, and it's treatable. It's how I can fix it. It's how I can manage it. This is how I can live and function and be happy. That's all I wanted to do, is be happy. But when I educated my friends and family on it, I kind of just told them bluntly, hey, this is what I have. This is what I'm dealing with. This is why I act the way I do. I'm sorry for that. I'm trying to get help and work on it. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for supporting me regardless. And that was it. I had to be just really straightforward with it. My fiance, to this day, we still are having conversations about it. I'm still, slowly disclosing information to him about what all goes into it, because it's so deep, and there's so much to understanding mental health, especially if it's not something that you deal with. I feel like mental health is something that you either get or you don't. And if you get it, it's because, one, you have it, you have a mental illness, or two, you have dealt with somebody directly that does. So you see how serious it is. Being honest, disclosing information to your loved ones, helping them help you is the biggest thing you can do for yourself. Coping mechanisms is the next one I got. What have I learned in therapy as far as that goes? For me, it's breathing. Anytime I feel kind of a panic attack or something coming on, I breathe. Anytime I feel myself getting really angry in a situation, I remove myself from the situation, because anger is, for me, my default emotion. Well, I wouldn't say at this present time it is. It's so much better than it used to be, honestly. Like, I am happy right now. I am healthy right now, and I'm grateful to be there. But for a long time, anger was like my go-to. It was my default emotion. I was so just angry and hurt for a long time. Back to coping mechanisms. I remove myself from situations. So if I feel like a situation is getting tense or angry, or I feel like a situation is unfair to me, then I remove myself from it. And that's, friendships, conversations, whatever the, situation is, I will remove myself before it escalates, because it's not worth my peace. It's not worth me getting upset. Some people can get mad and get over it very quickly, and I cannot. With BPD, your outbursts are going to last. I'm going to be mad for a day, days, whatever. Now, I still avoid things and people that I cannot be myself around, because I've had to be very honest. I got to a point where I just couldn't lie anymore to the people around me and to myself. So being honest has been the biggest game changer. And if it's something that I feel like I find myself manipulating my personality to fit in, I know that's not healthy, and I know that is not right. So I just don't hang out with those people anymore, frankly. I don't put myself in those situations. I don't have those conversations. I just don't put myself in any situation where I would have to change myself to fit into that situation. Those are briefly what the ones I had already were. Again, I can talk about this stuff all day. So if anybody has any questions at any time, please don't ever hesitate. I will give you my opinion. I will give you my experience, and I will try to help guide you in the right direction. I know what it's like. I promise you. And sometimes you just need somebody to listen. So again, if you ever need a listening ear, I am here. If you have any questions, let me know.